By faith, Samson prayed, and Samson took hold of the two pillars, and Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Samson did what he wanted to do, but God used him. So I've been working on this for quite a while. Samson, he's quite a character in the Bible, in Judges. And I started here. Samson's story is full of violence and sexual situations. And when I was young, I'd go to church, a Mormon church, and I remember something about him and how he was strong. But he did everything he wanted to do. The Word of God, blow it off. But it's a story of God's love and patience for Samson and Israel. The story of Samson is not a story of a biblical man that we should strive to follow. Rather, it's a cautionary story on how not to live, because he did things would get you in trouble. And he did get in trouble. It's a story that you and I should learn into and pay attention to its warnings, because we will find that we are more like Samson than most care to admit. And he is like when I was young. I was like that. I'm talking about human drives and desires that each of us is born with. We have sexual desires. We love food, and I like to drink. I still have some 100-year-old scotch. Someday I'm going to break into it, because I like good things. I did not understand the story of Samson over the years, but there are many narratives about conflict in his life. Samson did not accomplish what he was ordained to do before his birth. And there's a lesson for all of us. And it's this, that God knew you before you were maybe what you were going to be. Not maybe, but what you were going to be when the egg and the sperm met. It's amazing. And Les and I have told you before, we debated and talked about how God keeps control or knowledge of everything that goes on in the world, and especially this church. Amazing. God has an unmistakable plan, and we all have a purpose to fit in it. And we shouldn't be smug or proud. We should serve others and God. Whatever He deals out. So let's get some background pertaining to Samson. Hebrews 11:1. How faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtain a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which seem were not made of things which do appear. And we're very fortunate because we can find all kinds of dinosaur bones and everything. And we have coal here in Colorado. And it just didn't appear. It was by jungles, heavy in growth. Hebrews 11:32. And what shall I say more? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and of Samson and Jephthah and David also and Samuel and of the prophets. 11:33. Who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions. In 11:34, Hebrews, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed vigilant in fight, turned to fight the armies of the aliens. And all this by faith. So let's look at the birth of Samson. Let's start in Judges 13:1. Judges 13:1. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the land of the Philistines. 40 years. That's a long time. We've been here 30 years, and I can't imagine being subjected to the boot in your neck. Terrible. Judges 13:2. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Man-ah, and his wife was barren, and bare not. 13:3. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, you are barren, and barren, you can't give birth. You're not pregnant, but you shall conceive and bear a son. And now, this is all before conception. Now, therefore, beware, I pray you, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall, get this, he's already got an assignment. I didn't know about this church and Sabbath till I was 23. And then I had to figure it out. It took me another year and a half. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Pretty neat. Because God watched him and worked with him. Now, number one, from birth, he shall be a Nazarite. And number two, he shall free Israel from the Philistines. So that's his orders. Just marching orders. You do this. So what's a Nazarite vow? Numbers 6:1. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when either a man or a woman, get that, ladies? Either a man or a woman, My wife takes care of the books now. I notice Donna's not here. She's probably not feeling good. But she spends a lot of time in there and going to the bank and cashing checks and getting money and paying bills. But that's good because we have time and she has time. But women shall separate themselves to vow a vow of the Nazarite, to separate themselves unto the Lord. He shall separate himself from wine. In other words, forget it, drinking. No wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar. I don't understand that unless the wine might have, it didn't quite turn to get vinegar, and there may be some alcohol in it. Of wine or vinegar of strong drink. Neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes or dried, no raisins. That's one of my favorite snacks, raisins. All the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. So no grapes seeds or no grape skins. All the days of the vow of his separation, there shall be no razor come upon his head, until the days be fulfilled, in which his separation, he separates himself unto the Lord. He shall be holy, and he shall let the locks of his hair and head grow. I don't know about you guys, but I like my hair cut short, and I can't imagine. After a while, it'd be down to your waist, and then beyond that, and he had to tie it up and wash it. I don't know. That'd be a good one to look up. Numbers 6:6. All the days that he separate himself unto the Lord, he shall come at no dead body. That's interesting because we'll see what Samson does. Numbers 6:21. This is the law of the Nazarite, who has vowed, and his offering unto the Lord for the separation. Beside that, his hand shall get, according to the vow which he vowed. So he must do after the law of his separation. Interesting. To me, it is. Now, Samson was a Nazarite from birth. He was born in Nazareth, a vow often linked to the Hebrew root word Nazar, as Jesus was from Nazareth, Nazareth. Do you see the connection? That's where Jesus was born. People called him a Nazarene. Now, there's two spellings I found, Nazir and Nazar, and it means consecrated. Isn't that neat? You become consecrated if you take the vow. And right from conception, that's what Jesus Christ was. So the dualities are just amazing. Now, I'm going to go through Samson's marriage first of all. Judges, let's go to Judges 14:1. Judges 14:1. And this is where we see what type of person he was. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me to wife. Then his father and mothers said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren? In other words, within the community. Or among the people that thou a way goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? What are you doing? Guess what? I'll read it. But he went ahead and did what he wanted. And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleased me well. Please me well. That's a loaded word. Makes you wonder. But his father and mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that he sought an occasion against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Now, I found this commentary, and I put it in. It's from a book. The parents did not know it was of the Lord. God would use Samson's defiance against his parents' wish as a way of defeating the Philistines and providing relief for his people. In other words, you look down the road and you can see that God's going to use that. Although he disobeyed his parents and went down there and who knows what. So Judges 14:5. And went Samson down and his father and his mother to Tamar, and came to the vineyards of Tamar. And behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he went, and he rent him as he would have rent a kid. Now, the kid is like a young goat or a young lamb, just a little. I've petted them, and they're just small, and you can pick them up. They're light. And that's just, he did that to what when I was young, I could have done to this little lamb. Pick it up, tear it apart. And that's what he did. And he had nothing in his hand, but he told not his father and mother what he had done. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. In Judges 14:8. And after a time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands and went on eating. So he touched a dead body. And he was just told, or probably several dozen times in his youth, don't touch a dead body. Just avoid it. So what's he do? Probably spread the ribs and went to eat. Like I said, he did what he wanted to do. How many of us? And that's why I'm giving this. I look at myself. So his father went down unto the woman, and Samson made there a feast, for so used the young men to do. Today, I will tell you the subject about Samson and where it's found, because he was a busy man. Let's give it a try. I just read this, but Judges 14:5-7. Judges 14:5-7. He kills the lion with his hands. I went to the LA Zoo once with my kids. They were little, and when we checked in and paid a ticket and went in, but we could hear the lion roaring at the front gate of the LA Zoo. And it was impressive. And, well, let's keep going here. Judges 14:12-18. Samson tells the wedding guests a riddle about the lion he killed, and no one can figure it out. But they threatened his wife and her family with violence. They said, oh, well, we're going to get it out of you one way or another, or you'll pay. It sounds just like gang warfare, just what we're fighting in Venezuela. Gang warfare. There are parts of LA I wouldn't go because it's very violent. And so she tells him the answer to the riddle. Good going, girl. And let's move on to another story. Judges 14:19-20. So Samson kills 20 men to pay off his debt. And then, after he does that, he finds that his wife has been sold to another man, and he's dealing with a Philistine. Crazy. And then we skip to Judges 15:3-5. 15:3-5. And Samson wants vengeance over this, selling that girl out from under him. So he catches 300 foxes, ties them tail to tail with a device, lights the device, and burns their fields. 2 foxes, they're fast. We used to have them, but no more. There's too many people. It burns their fields, their vineyards, and olive orchards. It burned them down. So it must have been the fall of the year with no water. And so these people are going to go hungry, and they are mad at Samson. So let's skip down to 15:14, Judges. And when he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the cords that were upon his arms, they tied him up. Big deal, huh? Became as flax that was burned with fire, and his bands were loosed off his hands. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men wherewith. In 15:16, Judges. And Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jaw of an ass, I have slain 1,000 men. So you got to ask yourself, I used to teach judo and jujitsu, and one thing, we taught young girls how to protect themselves and men. And when you go in a restaurant, you sit with your back to the wall. You're always on alert. And that's probably what he did. I don't know. I'm reading from my teaching and from experience. You have your back to the wall. Maybe he had in a slight cave so he could maneuver, and he'd step out and kill men, cut their throat with his jawbone. It's possible. I knew a guy who they were my friends, and we'd go out to eat, and they wouldn't sit at a table. They always had to sit with their back to the wall. And cops get that way. Policemen carrying guns. They get a little antsy. And rightly so. You see what's going on? You live in here. Don't sell yourself short and be stupid. I love you, and I want you here next week. And so does God. Judges 16:4. And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Zork, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, entice him, and see therein his great strength lieth. So what's going on? They're determined to find out. And what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him. And we will give every one of us 1,200 pieces of silver. That's a lot of money. And you count today, I don't know what silver is, but it's up again. It was just a few days ago. Judges 16:16. And it came to pass when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, so that his soul was vexed. Oh, he was sick and tired of her harping at him, and to death. We call it nagging. The wife nags. Take the garbage out, or whatever. My wife doesn't do that. I'm glad to take the garbage out. 16:17. That he told her all his heart, and said unto her, there hath not come a razor upon my head, and I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. See that it was promised before. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. And then when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, or secrets, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, as saying, come up this once, for he hath shown me his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hand. So she got the payoff. So what happens next? She got the money. 16:19 Judges. And she made him sleep upon her knee. And she called for a man, and she had him shave off the 7 locks of his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. So he did it to himself. Judges 16:20. And she said, "The Philistines be upon you, Samson." And he woke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as other times before and shake myself." And he was not that the Lord was separate from him. He lost God's spirit. It's gone. 16:21. But the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. You know what he did? There was a big stone, a round stone, and he got to drag it around in circles, and day in and day out, when he wouldn't work, they beat him. Terrible. It's terrible. But he did what he wanted to do. That's my message today. 16:22. Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven. And 23. And then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon. And now, that's the fish god. They worship a fish. Well, there's no hope in that. Their God, small g, and to rejoice, for they said, our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And he did it to himself. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God hath delivered us into the hands of the enemy and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. Now, I want to go back to the God business. Today, at my tack is a little golden trout. And my friend Carter gave it to me years ago, and we used to fish. And I caught many fish. And I had a student come up to me in a master college and said, well, you can't wear that. That's Dagon, the fish god. It's for crying out loud. It's a tie tack. I set him straight. Silly. Thanks, Carter. I still use it. And he came, 25, and he came to pass when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may make us sport. So they wanted a little entertainment, and they called Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport. And I looked up that word sport. It means laugh or mock or scorn. So they could probably throw things at him and get him to dance or whatever. And they set him between the pillars. 16:26. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house is standing, that I may lean upon them. And now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there. All the presidents and governors and whatever was in that room, that building. And upon the roof, 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. So they all came to see it. By faith, Samson prayed to God, and God answered. Remember, we started reading in Hebrews 11:1 and 3, in Hebrews 11:32. It was all about faith. At that point, he had faith. He didn't have much else hanging up there. And Samson took hold of the two pillars upon which the house stood, and on which he bore it up, and the one on his right hand and the other on his left. 16:30 Judges. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which slew all his life, in his life. And it has a good ending. Then his brethren, this is 16:31, then his brethren and all the house of his father came down, all probably the aunts and uncles and everybody. And they could see the writing on the wall. They were going to be freed from these people because all the leadership was dead. They came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the burying place of the Manhi, his father, and he judged Israel 20 years. So we need a conclusion to this. Let's go to Romans 8:27. Romans 8:27. Here Paul writes, "And he that searches the hearts know what is the mind of the Spirit, because he makes intercession for the saints." He steps in for us according to the will of God, the Spirit of God. That's why I encourage people to get baptized, even if they doubt. I've baptized one person. They had doubt, and we baptized them again. But I don't care what happened before. You need to be baptized and laying on the hands of the elders. And I have some super people to back me up. God chose them. Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. You must love God or you wouldn't be here. Enough said. To them that are called according to his purpose. See, I worry about that now because we got a call wondering about our church, and I had to storm out, and I know Nita will take care of it. She'll call him up, or call her up, I'm sorry, and we'll see. Romans 8:29, for whom he did foreknow, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. 8:30, moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. You've got to be called, and I see people here, and I love it. But we have people online. They're just as faithful. Some people stay at home. You got to get your up and get moving. It's just like I used to do things. and with the church and the hospital there in Fruita, but I don't do. I can't do any. I'd be better off staying. I'm going to stay out of the kitchen with snacks. The ladies will take care of that. You don't want me in there. I can assure you. Predestined, when he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. You have knowledge. You have wisdom, and he gives it to you. That's wonderful. Now I wrote this. There are thoughts we have that are good because they conform to the written word of God. You're here. It's conformed to this, doesn't it? Samson, he just blew it off and did what he did. Samson did what he wanted to do, but God used him to separate Israel from the Philistine rule. I can do what I gathered from doing this. I can do better. I should do better. And so can you. This church is, I don't know, ready to grow a little bit or have something important to do. I don't know. But we can do better. And that's your challenge. So what? You're sick, you're handicapped, whatever. You can do better. You have one chance, and that's your life, and then it's over. There's no more do-overs. And Albert gave a good sermon on that. Well, that's all I have.